What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. And as you guys can tell, we are back with Fantasy Talk with Blake Schnieders. What is going on, man? It looks like you're in the car. So what is going on?
We are traveling. Me and El Padre here. We are driving down to Oklahoma City for a bachelor party for my cousin. So, going to be a good time. But I could not pass up talking fantasy football with my guy Lucas Murphy.
Of course not. Of course not. We got to jump right into this. Get into this, man. Holy smokes! Fantasy football the first week. It was a little tough for me to keep track. I was out at Arrowhead, and I do have to give them some mad props. Their Wi-Fi was on next level. The only issue is that it wouldn't refresh all the time. So it was harder keeping track of fantasy this week. I got home and really kind of was able to dive in. How did you do this week?
I did pretty solid. I ended up going 3 for 4. I might have gone 2 for 4. I had one guy come back on me at the very end. One I wasn't even in. One I won at the very end. And then another one where I blew it out top to bottom. So had the Monday night game swayed me on two different games. So 2 for 4, not too bad. I'm liking the teams I drafted. I had a couple good guys that performed. Had some guys that definitely underperformed. Aaron Rodgers, Mike Evans. So that was disappointing. That Rodgers, the Green Bay game really kind of screwed me. So
yeah.
But I'm feeling good. I think it was a good start to the season, and I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
I think it's you go into it and you always feel super satisfied with your team. But then obviously, like you kind of hit on it, you feel, you've established a well-rounded team, but then you have games from Rodgers, which translates to guys who have Devontae Adams, who really didn't go off like he typically would. I don't believe Aaron Jones really had the game that we would envision him having. And let's just be honest, I did not expect that score the way it was anyways.
Not at all.
And so really that kind of, not only did it translate from just a football fan game like the Green Bay Packers fans, but also it transferred over into the fantasy aspect. And that was absolutely nuts, man. So, I actually had Aaron Rodgers. I had Devontae Adams. Did not have Aaron Jones in any of them, but I can honestly say that the Aaron Rodgers affected definitely one of my weeks. I was actually able to still pull it out because of guys like D-Hop and a few of the other guys, but man, that could have easily swayed that game where I felt very confident in that team.
Yeah, luckily I had Kareem Hunt and Melvin Gordon. I'm sorry, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Melvin Gordon all performed this week for me. So those guys really picked up the slack for Aaron Rodgers.
For sure, man. So my first question I want to ask you that, and I kind of hinted at that I wanted to kind of catch you off guard. The first question is going to be, who really kind of stood out to you that you just had, you honestly didn't even have them on your draft board and they just completely dominated this week?
Actually, somebody that and I'd actually kind of forgot that they had moved here, but it was Corey Davis from the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Jets are going to be they're just still a struggling franchise. They got a rookie quarterback in there, but the connection between Zach Wilson and Corey Davis looked like, I went out and picked him up immediately after I saw how many targets he got, how comfortable they looked in the first week. So I think that could be something moving forward, and that's like a real deep kind of sleeper. But he put up good points. I believe he had 24, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that probably surprised me the most. Obviously, Jameis Winston surprised me. I can't say that I didn't have him on at least one of my teams. I actually had him on the team that I also have Aaron Rodgers on. So kind of a weird when you see Aaron with 1 point, and I think Jameis had about 27. It was a weird stat line, though. It was 159 yards for like 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was nuts. So that leads me to this next question, because that's really who I was kind of hoping you would lean towards. Is he a stardom or a sit-em for you for most leagues now? Would you, like, going into this second week, let's say you didn't have Aaron Rodgers, would he be one that you'd be like, I'm starting no matter what?
I think he came out and proved that he can sling the ball and he's going to find a way to. I mean, he's got chemistry with those wide receivers. Forever in his career, Jameis Winston was a winner. Now, obviously, he goes down to Tampa Bay, has some ups and downs, but he's never been short on arm talent. I mean, the guy can sling the rock around the field. So I think right now, until he proves you otherwise, he's an absolute stardom. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a huge – he might be comeback player of the year.
That's what's going to be incredible, too, because, I feel like they had a good mix of Kamara in both the passing game and the run game. He's got Marquez Callaway and obviously other receivers, but he was able to trickle in and do things. He looked like he hit the tight end twice, I believe. So he really did have, and I think that comes along with a great coach. And I'm not saying Bruce Arians isn't a good coach, but I think when you have Sean Payton, who is kind of a quarterback whisperer in a way, I think that helps out. And we may see Jameis Winston have one of the greatest seasons because we saw what he did when he was in Tampa. He just threw way too many interceptions. Now, I mean, if he reduces down on those interceptions, could he be in the talks, with being a top 5 quarterback if he keeps this up? And I mean, I think that's realistic.
I think, obviously it's week 1, so I gotta pull the reins back just a little bit, but I definitely think if he continues to just grow each week, and it doesn't hurt that he spent an entire season under Drew Brees, and I'm sure Drew realizes that Jameis Winston had talent, so he probably taught him quite a few things.
For sure.
So, and obviously being matched up with Coach Payton, I think that he definitely can. I'd like to have this conversation week 5 because I think we'll really see if Jameis goes out and throws 3 interceptions and 1 touchdown and loses next week, then we're going to have to reconvene this whole conversation. So I'd like to hold off a little bit, but I'm definitely excited from the very first week. First thing you want to do from the season is get shot out of a cannon, and that's exactly what he did.
Correct, man. I could not agree more with that statement for sure. So next thing I kind of want to talk to you about is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs opponent coming up this week, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, we know that they've literally got every type of injury you can imagine, from their running backs to their cornerbacks to whatever you name it. It sounds like their offensive line is now getting hit with the injury bug as well. It sounds like they've promoted running back Freeman to the active roster. We know Le'Veon Bell is there. Is there anybody on this Ravens team that you're looking at as far as maybe a fantasy start?
Well, I mean, they got Gus Edwards right now, but the guy that I'm excited to see and he got some playing time last week and put up about 8.9 points, is Latavius Murray.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming off a season, one of his best seasons ever, at least statistically, per yard per catch and yard per average per carry. So if he can get in a groove,
yeah, he's driving through the middle of Kansas, so we might have lost him.
Oh,
Blake, he's still there. There we go. Now we're good. Okay.
We're good? All right. Could you not hear me either?
Yeah, you cut out, so you're good.
Okay. What I was saying was Latavius Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs didn't do a very good job stopping the run last week at all. Latavius Murray, if they're going to give him some carries this week, trying to capitalize off of last week, and Gus Edwards, both those guys are big running backs, and Latavius is very fast. So that could give the Chiefs some trouble, especially if the Ravens decide to do if they're a run-first team. That's what we know they are. I think that could be really the only struggle. They seem to do a good job containing Lamar Jackson every time they play him, at least as much as you can contain a former MVP of the league. So other than that, I don't expect Le'Veon Bell to do anything. He's not going to come back to Kansas City for a revenge game. That's just not realistic. Yeah. He's probably most likely done with most of his career. But everything else, I think Gus Edwards and Latavius Murray could potentially cause an issue if the Chiefs don't have their head on straight.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, and then tonight's game obviously is the Giants versus the Washington football team. Barkley is listed as questionable. Just from a football perspective, which NFC East team are you going to go with getting the victory tonight?
I'm sorry, you said it was Giants.
Giants and the Washington football team.
I'm definitely going Washington football team. And I'm not sure if they've got Heineke or Fitzpatrick starting tonight. What was the deal with Fitzpatrick last week? He got injured and taken out.
Yeah, he's out 6 to 8 weeks, so it's going to be Heineke.
I actually trust Taylor Heineke putting on for Old Dominion out there. I think he's actually shown quite a bit of machismo. He's got some guts out there when he plays. I also like Antonio Gibson, the running back. The defense for Washington's pretty solid. You got Chase Young out there, and I just think that they're probably gonna. I think that whole division, and right now, I still don't. I'm not high on the Giants at all. I think they're going to be last in the division at the end of the year, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they did make a couple acquisitions at wide receiver, bringing in Sterling Shepard and everybody, but not really. I think it's probably going to come down to Dallas and Washington for the lead in that division. So for tonight, I'm definitely going Washington.
Sounds good, man. So with that being said,
I think it'll be closer than what we think. I think Daniel Jones is going to go out there. He's going to play well. I think it's probably going to be like 24 to 21. I think it'll be close.
Okay. Is there anybody that you're looking from these two teams? Obviously, we know. I know you talked about Washington, but they do have Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin. One of the guys that has stood out to me so far, and I've really kind of low-key been paying attention. I have them in one team is Logan Thomas, the tight end from the Washington football team. So I'm going to keep paying attention. I'm gonna pay attention to him now that I actually get to see him on TV and see really how his route running is and how much they look to him to throw the football, because he actually had a pretty solid game that first game. Is there anybody that you're looking for? I mean, you mentioned Sterling Shepard, you mentioned Daniel Jones. Is there anybody that you would be looking to start from those two teams?
Well, if we're going with Giants, obviously you start Barkley. Here's the thing. I actually avoided drafting Barkley this year.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I just feel like he might be one of those athletic freaks that is almost too big for his own body, and that caused an injury. Don't ask me why that makes any sense. I have no idea. But he just seems to get nicked up left and right, and that scares me. So, obviously, if he's ever playing, you got to start him. But I just don't know as we go down the season. I don't know how much he's going to be able to produce if he's on and off all the time. Daniel Jones is a solid play. He can get you points in a couple different ways. I don't know if I'd call him an absolute start. If you're hurting and you're not trusting your first quarterback that you guys drafted, maybe go ahead and play Daniel Jones. I would probably stay away from that though. So definitely starting Shepard and Barkley. On the Washington side, I actually do have Logan Thomas in my league and started him last week. I actually watched him last year towards the end of the year when he started getting some play at the tight end position. Former Virginia Tech quarterback, big dude, 6'6", 250, probably 260 now. Has really strong hands. He seems to be able to track the ball pretty well, and they love to throw to him on the goal line. So if you have Logan Thomas, definitely start Logan Thomas this week. I'd also throw in McLaurin. I'd also throw in Gibson. If you want to take a flyer on Heineke, you can, but I wouldn't say he's an absolute start by any means. But those other three, McLaurin, Gibson, and Logan Thomas, I would definitely start.
For sure. And I think if you're doing like a DraftKings or even a FanDuel, that's where I would look to maybe start a Heineke or even like a Daniel Jones, because you could probably stack your receivers or even running backs, and then you throw in a quarterback like that could still have a pretty solid game. I think that would be the reason I would look to start one of those guys. Man, I've been going through and really like trying to pay attention to a bunch of the injuries. We know Raheem Mostert went out with going to the IR. Not that it's really fantasy related, but their cornerback Verrett goes out and is out for a long time. Jerry Jeudy's missing like 4 to 6 weeks. So a lot of these guys that have been getting drafted and things like that, a lot of people are having to make adjustments. And it's kind of been crazy that we go through week one and we know that this happens. But yeah, man, injuries are happening, and
I think the Jerry Jeudy one is going to be real tough for Denver. That's just I was very impressed with him last year. His route running ability, his speed, and the fact that he's going to be out for a while, that I think that really blows some of the Broncos' chances in a lot of ways. Unless they can find, I mean, they still got Tim Patrick. They still have Noah Fant. They actually shout out to Mizzou. And I'm gonna screw this up, but Ngumboyu, however you say his last name, he got some love last week and scored a toucher. So I think they'll probably be able to fill in, but I think that's going to be a big blow for the Broncos moving forward this year.
I was, and I'm just saying this from a fantasy perspective. I mean, obviously, you guys know that I ride with the Chiefs, but I was impressed with Teddy Bridgewater last week. I think he put out to what his expectations are. He's not a turnover guy, but he's not going to just blow you off the scoreboard. I think he did really well for his first game, and you could just sense the team rallying around him. So maybe they'll be a little bit better than we anticipate because that defense is nasty from a fantasy perspective. Denver might be a sneaky add if you're doing a full defense until they play the Chiefs, obviously, but.
Well, we saw Von Miller finally getting back in some action last week, and that was good. It's been a while since we've seen prime Von Miller, so he might have a resurgence this year. It's funny you talked about Bridgewater. He won't do anything that's absolutely incredible, but he's kind of like, and I feel like I'm going to get some flack for this, but I swear Teddy Bridgewater really is like a real comparison to what Alex Smith played like.
Yeah.
He could make extremely athletic plays, but it wasn't going to be every play like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or anything like that. But he could definitely do some crazy stuff every once in a while, but he's also going to play smart. He's not going to turn the ball over that much. He's not going to fumble that much. I mean, he's going to control the offense and put you in the best position to win. And with the weapons that they have, I mean, they got Melvin Gordon, who really only had about 8 carries, but ended up getting 100 and a touchdown. And then they also have, what's his name? Michaels, the guy out of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Javonte Michael, is that correct?
Yes.
Or Javonte Williams. And I'm excited to see what he does as a rookie. I think he looked good in preseason. So I think Denver could be a very interesting team to watch this year.
For sure. I agree. And, man, I tell you, it's going to be nice just to know because the AFC West started 4-0, and it's going to be a great division. I mean, I really do. I think it's the AFC West and then the NFC West is going to be pretty solid. So, but man, I was going to kind of get your thoughts too on this. I actually started Ben Roethlisberger last week. This was an auction style draft, so I ran out of money on guys like D-Hop, Devontae Adams, and DK Metcalf. Spent it all on those three. Waited till the very end, got Ben Roethlisberger. He had a subpar kind of performance. And really it wasn't, it honestly was not an impressive. It's not that he had the turnovers or anything like that. He just didn't do anything. They're going against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Would you start Ben? He's projected to get 20.6 points, or would you go with a Jameis Winston who's going against Carolina?
You know why Ben Roethlisberger didn't do good last week?
Why is that?
They were on the road. Ben only wins at home. He balls out at home. He won on the road last week, but he doesn't usually perform well on the road from a stand-up. If you watch the last 2 years in fantasy, he just doesn't. And half of those correlate to direct wins as well. But are they going to Las Vegas, or is Las Vegas coming to them?
Let me check. I think it's actually they're coming there. Yeah, it's going to be in Heinz Field in Pittsburgh.
Yep. I would say that's tough, though, because playing Jameis at Carolina, I don't think Carolina's defense is that good at all. I think that's kind of a toss-up. I'd probably lean more towards Jameis Winston, but haven't been back at Heinz Field, got the terrible towels rolling. I think you can't go wrong really with either of those. I would probably give the slight edge to Jameis, though. But that defense over there in Pittsburgh is going to give Ben a lot of opportunities to score, and they're going to like the fact that they're back home with all the fans and everything. So you could, if you look into stuff like that, you think that kind of thing matters. I could see you edging Ben out, but I would probably play Jameis this week over Ben. But I don't think you can go wrong if you have either of them.
Okay, yeah, I have both. I actually have Zach Wilson in that one. It's one that I feel pretty solid enough that I have my player set that I'm just trying to interchange quarterbacks and trying to figure out the best one for the week. So, because I have David Montgomery, Leonard Fournette, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Tyler Higbee, D Hop. And so, I'm trying to like find that quarterback that just meshes well and then at least puts up like 20. Because, it's not that Ben, like I said, didn't throw picks. He didn't really do anything terrible, but he only threw for 188 yards, which
Yeah.
kind of blew me away because they have obviously Juju, they have Washington, and then they have Claypool. So I really, for only throwing 188 and a touchdown, 13 points kind of caught me off guard. But
Well, and if you watch that game, the Bills' defense was kicking their ass the first half. I mean, kicking it up and down the field. So it wasn't really until the second half on a block punt for a touchdown and a couple other things that they even put up any points. But they're not going to be going up that kind of defense against the Raiders this week. So he might let the guns fly. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else you want to mention before we sign off here?
Who was your? I mean, you asked me who stuck out. In this first week that we saw. Who, in your mind, is somebody that you didn't have eyes on at all that really stuck out to you?
I'm gonna pull up their stats real quick because it definitely. I've talked a lot of smack on this team. It would have been DeAndre Swift for the Detroit Lions. And I understand that it was a lot.
Game too.
Yeah, and it was a lot of like garbage points, but he rushed for 11 attempts, 39 yards, but he had 8 receptions, 11 targets for 65 yards and a touchdown, which resulted in 23 and a half points. So, for me, that caught me off guard just because it's the Lions. And it was a lot of garbage time. Like, when they would post the scores up in Arrowhead, and there for a long time, the 49ers were just slacking the Lions. I was like, man, that's crazy. But yeah, he ended up, I think, surprising me the most. I'm trying to think who else. There was somebody else that really kind of stood out. Not that it was like a negative thing, but I have David Montgomery in a lot. I really like David Montgomery. I think he fits really well with what they're trying to accomplish there. And I think for him having the ability to run the football the way he did against that Rams defense, I was super pumped about that because it helped out tremendously. And I think that just instills confidence into what they're trying to do there. And, seeing the interchange of Andy Dalton on certain plays, they would run out Justin Fields. He gets his first touchdown with a rushing touchdown. So it'll be interesting. And then obviously with the way the Packers were playing, man, that division's up and, the Vikings lose to the Bengals and it's not going to be an easy test for the Vikings this week. So who knows, man? The Bears might actually, if they can click and find some things, they might come out and take over in that division. That'd be pretty interesting. I definitely don't want to write off Rodgers and the boys just yet. Like you said, it's week 1, but man, that was an awful, awful showing. And with everything that happened in the offseason, they got a lot to prove. So
yeah, it was a bad shellacking, that's for sure. But I'm sure they'll get back on track. Rodgers is coming off an MVP season. I don't think this is going to be him tanking his last year as a Packer, most likely.
I did have one more question for you because it was Thursday night football, and it kind of with how everything progressed through the weekend, it kind of fell to the back burner for sure. But what were your thoughts on the Cowboys, man? I mean, Dak coming out, and there was a lot of questions around that team, and everybody kind of predicted that the Tampa Bay would just annihilate them, and that really wasn't the case. What were your thoughts on the Cowboys?
I have 2 words, one name: Amari Cooper.
Insane.
The man is an absolute stud. And if Dak can continue to progress as a quarterback and play and feed that man the ball, it is going to be an interesting year and I hate the Cowboys. This is not like I hate the Cowboys, but I am impressed by good football. And in my opinion, they played good football. They didn't come away with the win. But everything that they did in that game, obviously you'd love to see way more out of Ezekiel Elliott. Again, this is why I stayed away from Zeke. He had gone down the last 3 seasons in production, one worse than the next. And I don't know if it's just his running style, if it's their O-line, or if it's just the fact that they're just not. I mean, Dak threw the ball 59 times on Thursday. It just doesn't happen. That's not the way Dak plays. That's not the way the Cowboys play. So that was extremely kind of eye opening. Like, whoa, are they now going to open up now knowing that he can do that? Are they going to open up the offense a little bit more? And if they're doing that, is that going to open up a little bit more for Zeke? I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be. Another player that actually impressed me quite a bit. Somebody who's been troubling and maddening for fantasy people who draft him, but Antonio Brown showed up finally. And I think that's going to be a very nasty combo with Goodwin or Godwin, Evans, and Antonio. And if Antonio is your number 3, watch out.
Yes.
I mean, that was just a great receiving display from Cooper and Brown on Thursday night. So very impressive, both of those guys. If you don't have them in their league, sucks to suck because they're already taken. I guarantee it. I went out and made sure that the leagues that I don't have Brown in, I instantly went and looked for him. I'm cracking my dad up over here. I looked for him. He was taken everywhere. Luckily, I drafted him in one league this year. So didn't play him. I just wanted to see how he'd mesh. So I missed out on 23 points, but that's okay. I still won that game. So
yeah, man, I think it's going to be tough to know who to start because, I think for them it's going to come down to the game plan. And with having Brady and, him kind of knowing how he's going to run his offense. And that's why it was tough for me last week. I pulled the trigger very last second on Thursday. And I inserted Leonard Fournette into my lineup because I'm like, man, I just have this weird feeling. It literally went through the first 3 quarters, and I think he had like 5 points. And deep inside, I'm like, I epically failed by doing this. But then he ended up starting to get catches, started getting a little bit more of the rock, and I think he ended up getting me like 10 and some change. But like, are they going to look to ground and pound this week? They're talking about Ronald Jones being the starter, so like, is he worth the start? Leonard Fournette the start, or I just think there's a lot of question marks on who's going to do what in that offense, and you might just get lucky one week. And like you said, you started Antonio Brown, and he puts up almost just insane numbers. So yeah, man, it's going to be crazy to see.
I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be a team where if you it's going to be a weird season for them. So if you have because I have the Bucs in multiple different leagues. I have Fournette in 2 different leagues. I have Evans in a league, and I have Tom Brady in another league. I have a couple guys on the same team. I don't think I'm ever going to start somebody back-to-back weeks. I think that's just how it works for Tampa. I think next week I start Antonio. This week I start Antonio. I don't start Fournette. Then the week after that, play Brady, and maybe I don't play, and maybe I play Evans over all of them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'll be playing anybody back to back because that's just kind of, they rotate so much each week until they start finding a groove. You really don't know who to go with. It's a carousel over there.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Well, man, I think we covered it pretty solid this week. We did it in the time span, so hopefully you have a phenomenal trip, man. Hopefully you get to enjoy football this weekend. I'm sure I'll be texting you and hitting you up with the fantasy talk even on the side. But I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you joining even when you're getting ready to go on your trip. And hopefully you and your pops have a good ride.
It's a great way to start a good bachelor party trip. It's talking fantasy football with my boy. So had to do it, man. Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Man. Awesome. Well, you guys know how we wrap this up. As always, I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC, and have a fantastic day.